Nu go am op my gillies, Gaiertlin Lachak, Omongsa, do the Wallace Quagut. I'm Mary Everson, and I live in Comox. My history and my lineage is Comox and Quagut from Tsachis, from Fort Rupert. It's important because it identifies each individual person within the families, and it gives them purpose. It gives them a reason to be proud, because it's important that self-pride that is different than boastful pride. It's something that grows within you, and you become aware and you do the best that you can. You make the best choices, because you're not making choices just for yourself, but for your whole family, and then in turn for the village or for the community. And I think that it's important for every child to know who they are within each family. And it gives them, like I said, purpose. It also gives them responsibility, because that responsibility is far and wider than they can ever imagine. In the old days, your reputation traveled from ear to ear, from mouth to ear, and it traveled fast without having internet. It could get from here to Prince Rupert pretty fast. So I really think that those things, the pride that you have in who you are, where you come from, where you live, your family, your culture, your traditions that you follow are very, very important. And it sustains you, and it also gives you purpose, which is really important. A lot of people aimlessly don't have any purpose in their life because they've never been grounded. And the initial years are the first 5 years of a child's life. I really believe that they need to start to have the groundwork for knowing who they are. And it gives them a base that is important for the rest of their lives. That's a difficult question, in that the differences are sciences that we have available to us now. But I think that it has to be metered with a lot of traditional and cultural teachings that our old people have said. When I gather medicine, I make sure I leave a lot left so that it can regrow for the next year. And that kind of responsibility to the environment, and to ensure that my grandchildren and great-grandchildren will one day be able to go and pick those medicines that are really important for specific things in our life, and for health reasons, and also for, I think, holding that tie to the old people, because I can remember my mom burning medicine on the wood stove, drinking the teas, you know, all those things that were part of my life. My children and their children are going to be growing up with it, and I just would like to see that it's perpetuated, and to look after those things and regard them as the responsibility of humans. I remember going down on the beach with my grandmother, sitting on the log, and I'd go towards the water, and my granny would say, "You see all that land over on the other side of the river?" I said, "Yeah." "You know," she said, "that land can survive so well without us. It is our responsibility to allow it to have the freedom to grow like it would if we weren't here. But we rely on it," she said. "We have to use it to build our houses, to heat our stoves. So we have to take that into consideration on how we're going to utilize the wood from the trees and the plants that we use for our medicines and different things." So it's a big responsibility in ensuring that it can regenerate and become just as plentiful as it is today for tomorrow and eons down the way. I think back to the grounding in who you are. celebrating who you are and being thankful to the Creator for being here at this time. We live in a time where we can't do a lot of the things that we used to do because of the shrinking of our lands as First Nations people across Canada, and how that only a couple % of our land base that each of our villages had before we're able to use. We have to ask permission, or have to get a license, or we have to have some kind of authority over those things to get to do them. And in the old days, we had territorial areas, and we respected the neighbor territory owners, or what rights to them. They didn't own it. They had the rights to gather the vegetation of what they needed, whether it was for medicine or for keeping their house warm. You know, so a lot of the things that we have is out there, and we need to ensure that it's going to be there for a long, long time. I was very fortunate in that my first language wasn't English. My mom spoke Kwakwala to me up until she had passed. And she'd use the odd word like car, because there was no such thing as a car. And it didn't seem to honor our canoes to call it a huakwana or a canoe, because there was no water involved. And so there's a lot of the language that was very important for us, and that really gave us the key to having to practice and to be able to involve ourselves, to generate from one generation to the other the practice of the culture, the dancing, the stories, the songs that are very important to specific families and their namima, or their ancestral beginnings as a family. And I really feel that I was very privileged to be on the cusp of where a lot of things were lost, and had seen when we couldn't do anything in the big house, or even out in public, do ceremony out in public. People were chastised and imprisoned at times for that. And then I was born in the 40s, so in 1951, it didn't fizz on me, because my parents were involved in so many things that were done in our living room, was done outside, on the beach, at the edge of a forest. They would talk, and things were transferred over and talked about, and how things were done. Weddings were done in homes, in basements sometimes. So we carried on with a lot of the things in secret, and like some villages like Kinkum, Bella Coola, you know, you can go up that high, and Guilford, Village Island, a lot of those places were hard to get to at certain times. So our people would gather together and do them, and do them in secret, or not let anybody know. So I think those people that had this strong sense of urgency in maintaining the cultural things, because that's who we are. It's within us. You know, and the teachings of our people were, I asked my mom one time, you know, where do we come from? What is who we are? And she says, you look at the dirt, you look at the ground, because that's where we come from. We're part of the earth. We'll never own it, because it's already a part of us. And we're going to go back there again one day. And the next generation will come. And that just keeps us more in tuned and in contact with the land. And so I really believe that, you know, we come from the earth already. We're made of all those minerals and things that come from there, and we sustain ourselves on top of the ground for a while, and then we go back. It teaches them respect for the place they live, the places that they go to visit, and to respect those things that are important to our old people and our ancestors. And that's honoring our ancestors, as far as I can see, that we carry on and be responsible guardians, caretakers, and yet we harvest from it. But we honor it by leaving, making sure that we're not clearing everything out so that it won't come back. Because it's tradition for families to go in a specific place to harvest things. And I want in the next centuries, my children and my great-great-great-grandchildren to be able to go to those places and harvest and say, well, you know, I remember that Ada did that, you know, that she did that at one time. And I heard stories about her gathering and giving people some of it, because it was really important to share it, because it doesn't grow everywhere. And so it was really important for us to sustain that responsibility for generation after generation, and to honor those things. I mean, we even pray and we thank the Creator when we strip bark off of a cedar tree, when we take branches off of a cedar tree or a hemlock tree for our ceremonies. We honor that, you know, and don't just say we're going to waste it and throw it on the ground and it's going to be gone. We use it for our brushings. And these are important things, that those are carried on, because that otherwise our children and our grandchildren will lose their connection to the earth and also to the Creator who gave us that privilege. I really count it as a privilege that we live here, that we're able to sustain our lives and be able to harvest food. And, you know, we fish. And when I talk about territories, I don't talk about just the land. I talk about our rivers, our oceans. Those were our places that we took our food, and we honored them every time. And we knew them. We knew how they worked. They knew when the tides were coming. I mean, the old men were very, very smart. All you had to do was talk to an old fisherman that fished 60, 70 years ago. And he didn't have the sonars that they had now. They didn't have all the electronic equipment to help them, and internet and GPS to find out where they were. They say, oh, that's so-and-so and that's so-and-so. Well, it must be right about here. And I can remember my dad talking about where they went fishing, and they would go even up to Haida, and they would go to a specific place in the middle of winter when they were doing herring fishing, and knew exactly where the hot springs were. And they would go and have their bath at the ocean. At the ocean side. It wasn't inland, it was in the ocean. So, you know, I just go, wow, you know, we knew where things were, and that's passed on down. That's not reading in a book, that's not doing anything, but that's hearing it from the mouths of our old people, and listening and taking it to heart and putting it in proper perspective for the rest of your life to be passed on to another generation. So that's the importance of intergenerational teachings. When it was first created, I look at it this way. When the earth was first created, it was blessed. It was blessed with the things that grow, the things that live on it and that. And my prayer to Mother Earth is to be able to understand that majority of our First Nations people, especially, and many non-Native people today with the environmentalists and the different guardians of the earth, will honor it and be thankful for a place to live that will supply all your needs. We have wood to build our houses. We have water to drink. We have food, fish and shellfish in the ocean. And lakes. We have also some lakes that have fish, rivers, and honoring it in that that I never regret taking something without saying, thank you, Creator, for this. I mean, my sons and my grandsons, they hunt and they bring home elk meat for us, or the band gives us elk meat and halibut and some prawns at certain times of the year when it's in season. And I go, thank you, Creator. I hope these things are available for the future generations. And the thing is, we need to honor that connection that we will always have for the earth, because we depend on it so much. It doesn't depend on us. We depend on it to sustain us, to give us everything that we need. And today with the technology and that, I mean, they have to use some of the minerals. They have to use some of the metals. They have to use some of the ores that come out of the ground. That's part of the earth. So it's affecting everything, and people don't realize that, your camera, your phone, your TV, there's some mineral deposits, there's some metal deposits that come from the earth. Honor it. And I just hope and pray that we don't become so far gone in our disposable use of things on this earth, because it has changed so much in our in our landfills and different things. And I pray that one day that there's something that can become of not being over technical or invented to the extreme where it can't be disintegrate and be decomposed back to the earth. This is the whole purpose of us as First Nations. Everything we did went back to the earth or went back into the ocean. Our fish, the fish guts and the bones and that would be taken and put on the beach for the seagulls, for the eagles to eat. And for our elk and our deer and different things, the carcasses and different things would be put at the edge of a forest for the wolves, for the cougars, for the bears to sustain themselves. That's honoring Mother Earth. It's not just our vegetation, it's not just anything, but it's the whole thing that can survive without us as human beings. And I think that as long as we remember that we're not the only ones, those things were here long before we were. And they, in our stories, they talk about transforming into humans and humans transforming into them. And so there's a big connection. And I think that we need to make sure that we are not the top of everything on this earth. The earth is our main focus in sustaining us as human beings. We can't live without it, so we must honor it, and we must pray that the next generations will honor it, and so that it can stay as bountiful as it is.